Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Stubbs here. Welcome back to another episode of my GT6 Project Drifting series. And in this episode, I have the Chevy El Camino. Now, this car specifically, not this one that you're seeing on the screen right now, because this is in gallery view, you know, in the dealership, but the one that I've tuned, which pretty much looks like this. This is actually an old car. This is probably like my second car that I've gotten in Gran Turismo 6 and I tuned, because I ended up actually making a video on this thing, you know, really early back when I got the game. And it looks awesome. It's not really a black color, it's sort of like a really dark blue, sort of like a navy color. I think the wheels fitted perfectly, the bed at the back is covered up and everything. I think it looks great. And I wanted to leave it with the stock setup, the setup that I had before. And I took it out on the track, and basically there's the setup there. It has 627 brake horsepower and 1,453 kilos. And as you can tell, probably, if you go back and check, the weight reduction wasn't even set properly. I didn't choose an exhaust. I didn't put a supercharger on anything, because I didn't have enough money back in the day, you know, when this game actually, you know, started off. So I didn't have enough money to tune this fully. But once I took it out on the track, it drifted perfectly. It was so nice to drive. I ended up hitting all the lines just absolutely perfectly. The counter steer, everything, it was just perfect on this car. And I didn't want to change anything on it. I didn't want to change it to you know, the usual setup that I do on my newer cars. This has a lot, like a much stiffer setup than most of my other cars. You'll probably be able to tell when you go back and if you look at the suspension setup, the dampers and the spring rate and all that stuff. It's really high up there, because that's how I usually used to tune my cars in Gran Turismo 5. And, you know, I thought, you know, transferring Gran Turismo 5 setup to Gran Turismo 6, it might work. But, you know, I'm still messing around with a few of the settings in the suspension, you know, when I got this car. And basically, it just ends up drifting like this, and it's just so good to drive. And once I go into the back, where you'll be able to see basically from behind the car exactly you know, the way that the car is turning and the lines it's taking and stuff like that, it's so good to drive. It's just a car that I love to drive, and it's there in my, I'd say, my top 10 cars to drift in of all time, because it's just so good to drive. And you know, I usually say this in the majority of my videos anyway, you know, that, you know, I take a car on the track, it's, oh my god, it's so good to drive, and it's so fun and whatever. But this is really good to drive because of the way it like keeps its lines. I know exactly where to put it, basically. So you know, the majority of the cars, they're good to drive, they're easy to go out and, you know, get sideways, you know, get them to drift and stuff like that. But getting a drift car to have precision, that's a proper drift car, and this one has it. And I think if I end up putting something like, you know, some stickier tires on it, probably something like Comfort Soft at the back and maybe like Sports Hard at the front, you know, something that, like, you know, to make it as a proper drift car. Right now, usually when I use Comfort Hard tires is usually to mess around on the track, just the way I'm doing right now. And people are constantly complaining and being like, oh, why don't you use like stickier tires, because you don't get enough speed or whatever, or blah blah. That's because when I drift around just to mess around with the car, I use Comfort Hard tires, because I just mess around with it. I slide it. It's easy to get sideways. It's for me anyway, it's easy to control. But if I want to turn it into a proper drift car, I always go ahead and I change it to some stickier tires. I always do that, and people don't get to see that because I don't do that in the videos, because in the videos I just mess around with the car. I don't use it for anything specifically. But if you put in, you know, stickier tires or stuff like that, you'll definitely be able to get this to go sideways and pretty much put it exactly where you want to. But yeah, that's about it. Thank you guys for watching this video. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed it. If you have any suggestions, leave them down in the comments below for any future cars that you guys want me to do in any future episodes of Project Drifting. Thank you again for watching, and I will see you guys later.